Are those archived on YouTube as well?
Yeah. So what it'll
Oh, cool.
do, most of it, every once in a while I'll let the whole program run through, but usually it's kind of a teaser on YouTube and then Facebook. But we do keep the entire archive in our sort of private member area for
Oh, okay.
people who
That's
are
pretty cool.
subscribers. Yeah. All right. Awesome. Let's let folks in and we'll get started.
Great.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour once again. Thank you for joining us, dedicating a bit of your Saturday to our session here. And we have I see some fun folks tuning in that I might not see as often. Lou Delbaney, welcome, sir. Good to see you, man. And Alan Winkler too. I see you over there. Great, thanks for joining. I'm assuming there's this North Bennett Street connection got you interested in jumping on here today. Awesome. Looks like a cool spot you got there. Is that your home with the bike? Where are you?
Oh, me? Yeah, I'm just in my living room sitting by a raging fire right now.
Oh, yeah, nice. Sounds like a true. You're in Boston?
Yeah, north of Boston in Lynn.
Nice. Nice. It sounds like a true Northeast winter afternoon. Awesome. All right, we got a few more people I'll be letting in here, and I'll give an intro, and then we'll start chatting with our guests today. We're going out on Facebook and YouTube. For those of you that haven't seen this session before, I'll give you a little bit of context. This is Piano Tech Radio Hour. We meet here every Saturday. We've been doing this for well over a year, maybe two, I don't know. We're getting close. Basically, we started this beginning of the pandemic to provide something fun to connect piano technicians while they're at home and kind of connect us all globally in a way. We've got people from all over the world tuning in, and we get kind of the best of the best in the piano industry, from piano store owners, manufacturers, technicians, interesting folks who are doing cool stuff. We've had on the woman who is the curator of the Steinway Society on the island of on the island of Puerto Rico, and she's got this cool hotel and a bunch of Steinways there, and talking about the history of that, all the way to someone giving a lecture on voicing or touch up a finish or something like this. Now, this whole thing's being brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, which is the primary project that got started many years ago. We bring you online education, cutting edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. We have a few levels of subscription, and we've got some more formal lectures that you can check out from part of our online conventions or master classes that we've set up. And let me let some more people in the waiting room. And and look out for our next upcoming conventions and events coming up there. We just started doing quizzes for some of our content, excuse me, and creating kind of a fun point system. So basically, if you're a subscriber at the apprentice, craftsman, or artisan level, you can take these quizzes after you watch a lecture. And if you pass above an 80%, you get some points within our system, and then you could apply those points later to attend, conventions or master classes or different collateral things that we have, as well as getting a certificate kind of showing, hey, you're there and you're paying attention, you know what's going on. So without further ado, I will bring on our guest for the day, and let me just bring up a little bit of detail here. 1 second. Okay, great. All right, so I'll give a little bit intro. Let's bring him up on the screen here. Spotlight Morgan as well as myself. And yeah, this gentleman is Morgan Cowell. He is a younger person in our industry. He became an RPT at the age of 20, graduated at North Bennett Street School in 2014, He's been teaching and very active in the industry. He's taught at the convention in Tucson about being a young person in the business and the challenges young RPTs have to face. He set up shop in Lincoln, Nebraska, and now has 2 full-time employees and several part-time. They service 6+ universities, 100+ churches, several thousand private clients. They have the full rebuilding shop, sell instruments, and are looking to expand into other areas soon. He is, are you still currently the president of your local chapter, PTG?
I am, yep. Mhm.
Awesome. And served on the Institute team for the PTG, planning and running the annual convention. And what we'd like to do today, we're going to play it a little bit by ear. I want to get a bit of background on Morgan, his initial years as an RPT, kind of building his reputation, skills, tools, education, stuff like that. But he does have a little bit of a more of a prepared presentation, which I think we'd probably like to go in maybe for the second half of the session. And that's just kind of around what he's picked up about the business of being a piano technician, a little bit of the finances and kind of decision-making processes that may have been useful to him, which I think could be useful. So I'll say officially, Morgan, welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour.
Hey, thanks. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun session. Anything you want to say up front before we dive into the combo?
I don't think so. It's fun to see a lot of the faces there on Zoom. I know maybe a good third of you, and the other third, or like 2/3 rather, I've probably seen, we met each other, or oftentimes we collaborate online on some of the other Facebook groups. So it's fun to see the faces behind the
behind
Facebook
the profiles.
comments. Yeah, exactly.
Totally. Awesome. Cool. Well, yeah, why don't we just get a little bit of background on you? So what made you just first say, I want to be a piano technician? When did you make that decision and start diving in?
Yeah, so that was about 1.5 years into my music degree with undergrad, and I just getting burned out like a lot of people. And I dropped a pencil inside of my Kawai Grand, and I pulled the fall board off. I figured out how to do that, and I saw all the components on the inside. And I went to my teacher and said, "How does this work?" He says, "I don't know." Why is one piano bright and one mellow? I don't know. Why is one $1,000 and why is one $100,000? Better wood, right? That wasn't a good enough answer. So I did some Googling. I found the PTG, and they recommended, at that time, there were 4 or 5 schools in North America. I kind of arbitrarily just picked the Boston one. I flew out there to North Bennett, walked in the doors of the old building before they had moved, and said, "This is it. This is what I want to do." And I made a huge switch, and I haven't looked back. It's been great.
Where were you at school? What state? What city originally?
So I'm from Nebraska. So I was at a local college here. And then, I went out to Boston, and I didn't mean to come back to Nebraska. I meant to stay out there on the East Coast or get a college job someplace. But there were some family things going on at the time. So I came back to help out with those. And around that same time, about 3, 4, or 5 technicians had either passed away or retired. There was a huge kind of just hole. And I thought, you know what, I'll set up shop here for a couple of years so I can get my experience down so that I can do a college job someplace. And just kind of all exploded.
There you go.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Yeah, I love Nebraska. I have my own connections to Nebraska.
That's
Lots
right.
of interesting points. I was in a band with some guys, 1 or 2 from Lincoln, 1 or 2 from Omaha. And there's a music scene there. The Saddle Creek Records is kind of like an indie music scene that I sort of became a part of through them. But then you have some other interesting stuff going on there. Got Warren Buffett and the Berkshire Hathaway scene, and actually I don't know if had you ever met or kind of got familiar with David Anderson? Who was
sure, yeah. He was born in Omaha, wasn't he?
What's that?
Wasn't he born in Omaha?
I think, I forget whether it's Omaha or Lincoln or where exactly, but yeah, his family's from Nebraska, and I always found that interesting. His whole family.
Yeah. So it's a huge state, but the majority of the population lives on the far east side, between Lincoln and Omaha. That's well over half of the state's population. So I live in Omaha, but my workshop is in Lincoln. And I'm either going to do a second location in Omaha, or I might move the Lincoln one up there. Still deciding.
Okay, wow. Because it's like an hour drive between the two, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, well, I love that, hearing a little bit about the background. And so then you had to live in Boston for a little bit to study there. Did you do the 1 or the 2 years at North Bennett Street School?
I just did the 1 year.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. If I could go back, I would have done both, but I had some family stuff that I came back for. But so it's way cheaper to do it the first time at North Bennett, and you just get a better education rather than doing it on your own, or learning from other people. But
right. But it seems like you've been able to pick up a lot of the more, what you might consider advanced skills independently. So that's cool.
Yeah.
All right. And then, so we got pretty much the structure of it. You're doing music. Were you studying piano or just?
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
Yep.
Studying piano. You made the transition. You became a piano technician. And it sounds like things kind of snowballed, once you got your education and you kind of got to doing the actual business of it, things have just fallen together since then. Yeah.
It seems to be, yeah. It's happening all across the country, right? There's just less technicians. And so there's a void in most markets regardless. But yeah, I think once you get set up with kind of a clear vision and some good goals for yourself, and it just kind of naturally falls into place.
Cool. So let's talk about developing sort of your reputation around there. So you moved to Lincoln and you got going. How did you find that process? Like, were people skeptical of you as a younger person? Were they actually excited or more supportive? Like, how did that process go in terms of actually building your reputation? What did you find useful? What did you find difficult?
That's a very interesting question. The first couple ones would answer the door and go, "Well, you're not 55." Nope, I'm 20. I'm 21. And there was some pushback for a while. How could you possibly learn this? The last guy studied for 10 years as a band director, had all the experience. Well, no, I went to a good school, and I found that wearing ties actually helped in the first couple of years. Not a suit and tie, because then they think you're a missionary. But if you just wear a tie, it solved all those problems for me.
Nice.
Yeah. And now, I can show up like this and people are okay with that. But when you're baby faced and 20 years old, it's yeah.
I've heard something similar. A guy was a neuroscience PhD, I believe, in teaching at the university level. And he was a younger guy. And so he grew a beard, right? Like that was his solution. He grew a beard just to make himself kind of look more distinguished and more mature, and like took all of those, call me mister and all this, or doctor or whatever, just for the sake of kind of developing the appropriate relationship. It's a tough line. Yeah. I was relatively young as well, not as young as you were, but in my like 22 or something. I started learning around 20, got started around 22, but very similar. It was something where they didn't know what even to do when you got started. You kind of had to build your reputation. But what I found in New York City, where we're tuning, is there's a lot of people who are actually excited about helping young people get going, and they're excited about that process too. So I think that's one thing I always tell the younger technicians who have like a little bit less confidence is, hey, take advantage of the natural empathy people have for young people, wanting to give them a little bit of a break, wanting to help them out. That stuff is all there, and you don't always realize that. Then when all you think about is, you have a lack of experience. Carl Lieberman said, "Now I've reverted to my hippie roots, but for 20 years from age 30 to 50. Oh, you wore a tie. Okay, got it.
It's you act the way that you're dressed. They found that with schools that have uniforms. Oftentimes, if or like working from home, right? You can work home like in your pajamas, or you can put on like your business clothes. And once you make that transition, you are in a mindset of, I'm here to do work, and then you do good work. And then it's just a confident booster too, right? Like, you're going to walk into someone's house and you're going to be scared about what you're going to see, right? You're going to find some unknown problem. Right. But if you know, have an outfit that that you look good in, or that you feel comfortable, wearing and stuff, that just adds at like 5 or 10% of confidence that just kind of transcends through the rest of the day and makes a big difference. I tell people what shoes you wear also matters. One, because they're coming off at the door. So have good socks as well. Within your tuning bag, is it organized? Is it a backpack? Is it a Walmart sack? Right? Like, what does that look like? Because you have about 30 to 40 seconds, right, to make a really good impression with that client for the first time. How do you address the pet? How do you address the house? The clients? It's so I kind of have a script that I follow, and it seems to be working out well.
Cool. And when you say script, is it like what you say, or just kind of like a procedure when you enter the establishment?
So yeah, the first thing that I do when I walk in is the shoes come off. That's the first thing, right? I walk into your house. I respect where you live. It's wintertime, it's snowy and stuff. The first thing I do is shoes off. The second thing is, where's the pet, right? Because for a lot of piano owners, the pets are more loved than their own children. So you give it attention, you love on it and stuff. And then, after like 5 or 10 seconds, you ask where the piano is. And then they will walk you to there. And then you ask them, what's the story on this piano? And then you shut up and you let them talk while you're unpacking your bag. And that really does two things. One, it will give you like a nice history, like when it was serviced, laughed into. But then secondly, if they want to tell you that their grandmother was a concert pianist, that gives them opportunity to do so early on. And you have the kind of back and forth, and you talk about it. And while they're telling you that story, you are putting on your apron. That's the second thing. The shoes are off. And then now it's, I'm wearing an apron because I respect your instrument. And then, so that's, the first maybe 3, 4, 5 minutes, you can have a small little banter kind of back and forth. And then you say, all right, I'm going to get started. And they say, okay, great. And then they leave. And then you get to work. That works way better than kind of having this like 20, 30 minute where they watch and you ask questions and like you explain what a picture is, yeah. So
yeah, no, that sounds great. Where do you get your apron, by the way? Is it through the PTG? Do you have like a source? How high end do you go? Is it a fancy leather, custom thing with the monogram on it?
I am in the market for a new one, actually, because I was using the North Bennett ones for a long time, but the 5 I have now are in rags, and they've recently updated their design. So I think I'm gonna just have someone custom made with the same company, but just with the embroidered logo on the front. And it just makes a difference, like when you're wearing your apron, it's I'm here to work. And then when the apron is off and they walk back in, they know that the appointment is over. Because sometimes you kind of have to, it's hard to get them back to get payment or go to the next appointment and stuff. If the apron is off, oh, you must be done. I absolutely am.
Cool. Yeah, that's great stuff.
Ethan and Morgan.
Yeah.
I found that for gals that I loved wearing jumpsuits. Some were pretty dressy. And it allowed me to crawl under the piano without worrying what it looked like. And the only person that Chris Lovegren wore a skirt, and she could do that so professionally. I just thought, how do you manage that? But as I say, the jumpsuit worked well for me. I had one that was sort of like a tux that my mother had made with a fancy kerchief in the pocket. I had one white jumpsuit that unfortunately I had people watching me as I was working, and I split the rear out of it. So it wasn't 100%.
That's interesting. Like the apron is sort of like the on-brand piano technician kind of protective gear, but I did kind of have this fantasy of like a jumpsuit, like the kind of like a mechanic, like go the way of a mechanic, and you get kind of like a cool jumpsuit with the little with a little ovular patch on it, with your name. I think that could be a direction we could go in terms of piano tech fashion and
Dan McLevine always used to wear a jumpsuit.
who did that?
Right,
Dan McLevine.
Nice.
right.
It
All right.
depends on your demographic, because like when I'm out turning rural areas, sometimes the tie is too much, right? Like you're dealing with, like really like nice, well-to-do farmers, but ties are for church, and this isn't church. This is Tuesday. Like, what's this guy trying to sell me? He shows up with the tie. Last guy showed up, sold my wife a vacuum cleaner. What's this guy going to sell me? But then I know that Dan Levitan said too that he has to wear a tie because otherwise they won't let him in the building. He has to go around the service entrance, like if he's not dressed properly. And sometimes you might go from a school to a private residence to a concert tuning, and so like you might be seen with the other musicians or have to be on stage. So what you wear has to be appropriate for all those possible venues and also who you might meet, right? I mean, you could tune in shorts in the summertime, and some people do, but you might happen to meet this really good artist, and maybe the shorts are, it's not what you would wear to the appointment. And so right, like you have to kind of oversell yourself in that regard. And reputation helps, eventually, but it's a small thing that you can do to start your day that just has a lot of really good consequences throughout.
So this is an interesting topic. It bridges to something else that you're up to, and that is, having people working with you and for you. How do you approach this, right? I have the same thing. I've got a few people that work with me in New York City. You could be like, here's the dress code, here's the uniform you got to wear. You could give them a little bit of liberty. You could just give them some open advice and see how they apply it. How do you handle that, having like a larger organization that represents, what you're doing?
Yeah, so right now it's business casual, but one thing we're doing this, we're going to rebrand entirely. And so when we do that, we're going to get some really nice apparel. Land's End and I know the LL Bean both have the business catalog stuff where they'll do the embroiderment, on the side and the aprons, and it's not cheap. And you don't necessarily want to look like you're working at a fast food restaurant, right? But it's the better and more professional you look, the less questions about, is this your full-time job? You actually get. And when you're trying to quote like rebuilding work or regulation work or voicing stuff, the less hindrances you can have in that, I think the better.
Yeah.
When you're young, once you start getting some gray hairs, then you're fine. My dad used to work in finance, and the 55-year-old guys could be, back like this with the unbuttoned shirt, and sell you this retirement plan, right? But the 22-year-old guys, they are wearing the full suit with a really good haircut, and the polished shoes because they don't have that gray hair like persona yet. So they have to compensate with their dress. So I think it's the same with our industry as well.
I see Carl's very entertained by this. He's like, I got plenty of gray hair. It's nice and long and
I can do whatever the hell I want, but when I was younger, I had to do all the things that Morgan's talking about.
Right. That's awesome. Cool. Well, that's great. Let's talk about a few more things, and maybe we'll bump it in this presentation here. How about continuing your education? Clearly, that's been something that's important to you. How do you approach it, though? Do you like have like a budget for that? Do you kind of say, "Oh, I'm interested in this, I'll just do it"? How do you approach that? And also curious for your team, right? How do you approach it?
Yeah. It's everything. We get inspired sometimes by a random thought when you're watching a movie or something, right? But you have to do the work ahead of time. If you go to a woodworking trade show and you see this one machine that cuts this weird kind of notch, right? 6 months later, you might be trying to do this one repair, and then that machine comes back to you. And now you have a whole new way of doing this in the shop, or a whole new way of doing this. or marketing or travel or business or finance, right? So the more things that you can absorb, they may not always be useful right at that moment, but I find that oftentimes that they become useful later on. So education is very important. I take lots of workations, as I call them, all the time. I did the harpsichord thing with Winkler and Lewis a couple of years ago at North Bennett. I'm going to go back to all the other things they offer. Being part of the PTG, the national convention is great. There's regional conventions. I'm on the committee that helps run and plan those. And we really work hard to make those be worthwhile, because it's expensive. You know, when you're self-employed and you don't work, that's costing you money not to work. So say that you take 5 days off, right, to go to convention. That's 5 days that you're not working. So you could do, you know, $sign for that, but then you have the cost of going as well. So, but it's absolutely worth it. All my team members are going to come with me to convention this summer. It's expensive, but it's worth it. And they're going to take, you know, a lot of notes. We're going to have like some roundtable discussions, you know, at night and, you know, and going forward. We can rewatch a lot of the ones that are aired. We can watch together the masterclass ones, right, that you have available. Those are good things to watch, you know, and I talk about again. So anybody that says that they know everything, I'm very skeptical of. And there are a lot of technicians in my area that kind of peaked at their education, and for 20 years they've been coasting. And they're very happy and they're tuning well and stuff, but they're not doing the regulation, the rebuilding, the optimization, right? They don't know all the, you know, all the new tricks and the new tips. And I think that's why that we're growing so fast, just because we know that information, we care about it, we can implement these new tools, you know, and things. And there's just so much to learn.
Yeah,
that makes a huge impact.
That's one thing that I've noticed. It's just an obstacle for piano technicians in general, and that is work starts piling up, and you got the income coming in, and you made the appointments, and you're just going out there doing the work, and to even think about taking the time to do something else, to learn something else. It's like, well, everything's kind of working, right? But it's just a matter of momentum, and I think that's one of the advantages of the group that maybe you have and the one that I have too, is just try to really have just another voice, trying to help someone take the time to develop and learn something new and grow and change and stuff like that. I think it's something you really intentionally have to get into. Yeah. Carl Lieberman has a question for you. How do you tune Aural, ETD, Cybertuner? Do you require all of your employees to tune in a specific way in terms of electronic or ear tuning? So
right now, I'm the only field technician. I'd like to hire a couple more. So if anybody you want to move, send me an email. So the other employee that I have is full-time in the shop. And then the other one is my office coordinator. Does a lot of the behind the scenes stuff for me. I can talk about how great that is and how much time that frees up and how that makes you more professional. Actually, we should come back to that. But I tuned orally for the first 5 years after graduating school. And then I started getting all these college stuff, and you'd have to do 30 practice rooms, you know, in 3 or 4 days. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to try Cybertuner, and I haven't looked back. It's great. I use it all the time. I still do Aural things a lot. Sometimes clients request it, or they might say, oh, the last guy used this iPad and he did a terrible job. And you say, oh, don't worry, ma'am, I've got you. I'll do it all by ear today. And, you know, so, but yes, I'm a big fan of Cybertuner. And when I get more of the field ones, I'll ask them to use Cybertuner, or at least do something comparable, because I use the Pure 12th tuning system, and that seems to be very happy through a lot of my clients in colleges and whatnot.
Cool. So I think we should pull up your presentation in a minute here, but what I wanted to ask you before we do that is, about the transition there as you built the business. You said some people were retiring or, passing away or whatever. Did you officially kind of sort of buy people's businesses or client lists or develop relationships where they were giving you business? Or was it more just, it happened to be you filled the space and the sort of business was there?
All of the above. The first one I did was a non-PTG member. Nice guy. He had retired about 2.5, 3 years ago. And he told me that he could call up all of his clients and then I could get half of them really easily. And so we totaled what